So I was kind of hoping, actually, to, yeah.
Do you want to start with finance and then if Steve or anyone?
Yeah,
else
let's
is
do that.
able to join?
Let's do that.
Nate, you want to give us the big
So-
Friday
so me,
finance?
okay.
Yeah.
Steve's
There's
here.
Steve.
And there's Steve.
Steve's walking in. I'll let Steve sit down first.
Steve, there's two handouts for you to grab right here.
I'll go ahead and get started while Steve's grabbing the handouts. We have the budget versus actual and the expenses report that you'll see through the month of June, or sorry, through the month of May. We are in June. Just to show where we're at financially. Obviously still going through the audit process and hopefully winding down here in the next week or two after speaking with them, obviously a lot. But just so you can see that page 1 of the budget versus actual shows just the revenues for all the non-department stuff, which is coming in at 95.22% if you look at the bottom line number, which is over where we're at. Obviously for the fiscal year, we're 91.67% of the way through the year. So obviously it's good to see the revenues higher. And I don't have a department revenue breakdown, although I was thinking I probably should do that since I do the expenses as well. But if you look through the department revenues, most of them are tracking above that 90% as well. So I feel like we're doing really well there. If you just look at the expense report, you can see the breakdown and what departments obviously are tracking. Sorry, let me get Tammy in here really quick so she can join us. So you can see where we're tracking at with obviously, like I said, 1 month left. I feel like everything's looking well for the city. I know that Ashley and I have talked this week, and I mentioned it yesterday at the managers meeting that we had, that I've come to the point since I've been with Ellsworth for the last 15 months. I guess I'm kind of tired of the stigma of, the finance department, obviously the last few years has struggled and the audits and everything else. And I'm ready just to kind of, let's correct this. We have a lot of processes and stuff that we're looking through. Ashley and I discussed, obviously, even small things like return checks that we get back. Like, what's the process for that? How can that be done better? So obviously we had conversations with Sue in regards to some of that stuff, even abatements. Everything that we're doing, we're just checking the processes, making sure we're doing it the right way, because we want to make sure that the FY25 audit, it's one of my SMART goals. I believe it's one of Ash's as well. We'd love to obviously get a grasp on this and have this done before the end of the calendar year. That's my goal. And I'm going to work tirelessly and to make it successful. So if you have any questions, I'll answer them. But obviously the financials there, and like I said, I think we're looking pretty well. Yes, Steve.
I'd just like to recognize, I appreciate you looking to do better, but this is another time for me to say, look how much you've done. That department has come full circle in 15 months. So it's come a long, long way. And great, it's wonderful that you're looking to continue to improve, but I'd like to recognize the improvements that have been made.
I appreciate that, Steve, and I think I kind of rested on that mindset of, it's better than it was, but I'm tired of it being just better than it was. There's a lot of things that we still need to shore up and get better. So like I said, my goal with Ashley's goals, we both have SMART goals, and a lot of it has to do with obviously just getting our processes and systems in place to where, whether it's us or for someone in the future, but we want to keep Ellsworth looking good financially. And I think obviously the citizens and everyone wants that as well. So Tammy had us in a good spot obviously years ago, and we want to make sure we get it back to that like it was before.
Nate, I got a couple of questions.
Yes, Michelle.
Well, the first one is capital improvements are 201%. Do you know why and what we're going to do to cover that?
Are you looking on page, this is probably the last page?
1, 2, 3, yeah.
I just want to make sure. Page 23.
No, we're looking at the,
No, at your,
The expenses.
expense
the
breakdown.
expenses
Expense
breakdown.
report, sorry.
Sorry, I didn't,
It's okay. So, let me just trying to see. I know that, a large portion of that was something that we received, I believe, grant money from in FY '24. So if you see the expenses, I don't think it was budgeted for, but the revenue came in the previous fiscal year. But I can double check that.
yeah, if you would, because, just to
Yes.
make sure that there's coverage. And then this, I'm looking at, on this same report, the, what is it, public fire protection, isn't that a set quarterly amount?
It is a set amount, but I don't believe it was budgeted correctly. And the income side will reflect that change as well. The revenue side you'll see that as well. But I don't know why it was budgeted 366, but yes, that is a set amount.
Okay, and then the same thing with the streetlights, those are over, and isn't that a set rental?
Yeah, the streetlights is one that actually I was looking at yesterday when I sent it out, and I'd have to talk with Jason and them, because I don't know why that's so over compared to budgeted amounts.
Okay.
But these are all things that I can run and get back to you guys with, for sure.
The 366 budget that, Michelle, you referenced, when I came on the council, it was 366 divided by the quarter is 91.5, and when I got on the council, it was 92 grand a quarter. So that number may have come from.
From that?
Yeah, I'm guessing, because when I got on the council, I first looked at that and I'm like, 92,000 a quarter. And I'm not saying it
The
is.
reason it went up
but
is
it's
we
close.
went up on our water rate increase, in October of 2024. So,
Okay.
when we went to budget, I don't know if we had
We don't
planned originally to go up and it wasn't adjusted.
Yeah, I'm pulling real
Because I
deep
think it
here,
was-
but
I think now it's like around 115,000 a quarter, I believe now, roughly.
you know, I think I remember from the FY '26 budget process, I flagged like, why in the world are we going up so much on public fire protection? And I'm pretty sure you mentioned that we just budgeted for it the wrong way the previous year. So that, but
Your
we'll
budget for the increase, okay.
we'll flag that too. And then the capital improvements, yeah, let's dive into that. I know we changed like how we kind of categorize those within departments. So I don't know if it's relative to that on why this is happening, but
Well, the reason I'm asking, and Tammy, you can, if I've got this wrong, but if we want to encumber, you should encumber any capital improvements that weren't spent. But if the line item is overdrawn, we can't encumber anything. So, we just need to figure out how that's recorded. I don't think it's recorded correctly. If it was a grant from 2024 and the money is there, I don't,
we also
how
had
would we
FEMA
handle
money
that?
too for capital improvements, like but I don't know if that's how that's captured in here as well. So
how would that be handled, Tammy? I can't remember.
You're muted right now, Tammy, just so you know.
Yeah. You're muted.
I'm sure it was a great thought.
Yeah,
though.
sorry,
That's okay.
sorry, it's just early Friday morning. I believe you can like encumber the revenues as well to kind of carry them forward to the next year. Basically, it kind of falls into fund balance, but you can encumber those still and make them assigned
Okay.
for that particular project.
I know, thank you to the finance team. We haven't had a budget freeze, but we had a budget frost, is what they said. Just, some notes on, you might have money left over in those accounts, but, let's encumber over, or let's bring it over into fund balance. If you have a specific encumbrance you need, let's talk about that. But even for myself, I got a little bit left in the office supplies. I love chalkboards instead of whiteboards, but I can live with some whiteboards for another year if we don't need to spend money on chalkboards, that kind of thing.
And I have reached out to Tammy, and I'll probably keep wearing her out, but as far as encumbrances, because I know that's something that we need to bring back to the city, and that's something we're working on, so she's gotten several emails from me in regards to encumbrances, make sure I'm doing everything properly and accounted for, so.
Are the encumbrances on the June agenda?
I thought that's
They're
post.
not on the June agenda, no. That's that was one thing I spoke to Tammy about was, you know, how soon do we need to do that? Because obviously the fiscal year is not over yet. So I think she mentioned that it's been done anywhere between July through September. It's even been done as late as September.
We did used to do them in June, Michelle, but then we changed it to September because everything wasn't in, and once it's encumbered, then we find out the line item's overdrawn, that sort of thing. So we held it off until
Okay,
later on
okay.
into the next
Which-
fiscal year,
which
just to make
makes
sure
sense.
all of AP has
Yeah,
been accounted for.
exactly.
Yeah, and I think once we're closed out here too, we do have in the budget for some additional finance consulting, and hopefully having Sue come in from Bucksport. She's retiring, and you know, there's a long line of people I feel like are at her door and looking for some finance help in cities and towns across Maine. So, talking to her before, we're not nearly in the red alarm fire as some other cities and towns, but you know, looking forward to kind of having her help Nate and Ashley on some of these finalization pieces, as well as Tammy. As always, thank you for all the help and support here.
That's all I got.
No, we have until, July 4th.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I don't have the agenda in front of me, sorry. So next week we have the Thursday holiday. So I just want to, obviously, touch base, make sure we're still good with meeting on Friday, or if we need to send out the warrant electronically for signatures. We're moving the warrant up a day, so we'll be done on Wednesday afternoon. But I just want to make sure we're still good for Friday's meeting. And then separately, we have July 4th, which falls on a Friday, which is the first week of the fiscal year. I know there's been times where there has been no warrant that week, and that was our plan, but I just wanted to touch base with you guys, see what you guys thought, what your thoughts are on next week, and then obviously the week of 4th of July.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, I won't be here the next 2 weeks, so it's up to whatever works for you guys. But
My thought is that next Thursday's a holiday, not Friday, so we show. 4th of July, obviously, we've got to deal with that. But just because Thursday is a holiday doesn't mean Friday is.
Yeah, and that's fine. I just want to make sure people were going to be available to sign the warrant, so we'll plan as such for next week. And then, like I said, 4th of July week, are we okay with no warrant and no committee? Obviously, Friday is the 4th, so.
Seems
My
like
only request is, I'm cool with no meeting that week as long as everybody gets paid on time.
We've already had a discussion with Deb and Leah, and they've moved the bills up to pay it in next week's warrant. So everything, yep. We're on a pretty tight schedule back there when it comes to the bills, so.
that's good.
okay.
So to recap, you're gonna do no meeting on the 4th, obviously, or that week, but next week there'll be a meeting. Everyone in
Next week, there'll be a
agreement
meeting
with
on Friday.
Yeah.
We'll have the warrant available to sign, so we're good with that.
Great.
And I'll be out that following week after the 4th. I have a canoe trip up in the North Woods, so which this is the last year that we won't be getting cell service in the North Woods. You have text service on T-Mobile, but the year after that, Starlink will be accessible via T-Mobile in the entirety of the North Woods, which is such a sad. That's the one nice thing about going to the North Woods is you could truly send an out-of-office reply and be. It's like the one last place in
You don't need
America.
to tell. You shouldn't announce this stuff.
Sorry.
Really?
I'm still operating under.
You don't have T-Mobile.
I don't have T-Mobile,
Me either.
or I don't bring my phone with me.
I found out a friend of mine brings a sat phone to call his wife every once in a while. I was like, "What? You've ruined the whole trip vibe." But so I guess I'll get my easier one out of the way first, which is just really an update on police detail costs for political, like nonprofit events. We have a mass gathering here at City Hall on Saturday, and then another one I think on Thursday of next week. We recently, per our ordinance, we have, we charge for a police detail if it's going to be over a certain amount, but there was some back and forth on can we do that, and talk to our legal counsel, and especially in political events like this, it seems like we could be eligible to be sued, and our counsel advised us not to do that. And there's a separate piece when there is a mass gathering of that sort, and there's supposed to be peacekeepers here. Our police have been coordinating with those folks, but, hoping the peacekeepers will keep the peace is, not sufficient in the city if there's, we need to have police presence there to ensure safety, should things go wrong. So there
What do you
is,
mean by peacekeepers?
they kind of have like their own training during these protests for people to try to
Okay.
keep the peace, or keep
People
the
that are
peace.
So that people don't
associated
get-
with the protest?
Correct.
Okay.
They make sure that people just don't get too passionate about,
Yeah, and if it kind of happens, they have kind of protocols. I had a long discussion with Troy too, but
that's good. though.
every confidence. I'm glad they're doing that type of thing, but also if it were to escalate further, to have our police presence there is important as well. I won't be here on Saturday. It could be a larger protest. There has been rumors of that, around the country.
What are the dates of that?
Saturday is the one of them, and then
Saturday.
this Saturday and the following Thursday. So this Saturday, I think it's like No Kings or some kind of, and then the following Thursday is Juneteenth.
Juneteenth.
Yeah, which is I think it's more of a celebration than a protest.
That's just, they've been doing that the last few years.
Yeah.
That's just.
But Saturday is here?
Saturday's here.
Is there a time, or is it just?
Noon.
So I'm going to relook at our ordinance, talk to our lawyer. We shouldn't have something on there if we can't necessarily enforce it. Also, I used to be in the campaign world and had always paid for police presence when we did activities that could require police. So I feel like that, you should, if you're holding a big event, you're requiring city resources, that you should, organizations should pay for their police. But if it's not necessarily legal, I want to just dive a little deeper in there. One of the other reasons that we have some overruns in the overtime with the police is for exactly like this. So it's like now they've got to have a couple officers in addition. That will be a fair amount of overtime. So that's one piece. The second piece is just, I know we talked at the previous discussion about the YMCA lease, moving forward on that. I know, Stevie, you and I had kind of a back and forth, but I wanted to start in sort of the spirit of more workshops before we bring the full thing to council, and sort of getting the folks' ideas and kind of a little more sunshine into the process. We kind of talked about the YMCA lease, and they only pay $1, and they charge these other. So I wanted to bring the YMCA in. We're looking towards next Friday with some of their board members. I thought it was really successful when we had the planning board and ourselves in the cannabis discussion. We were able to get like really all the edges of that discussion, so we can kind of see where there's some alignment and move forward. And for some of these bigger pieces, I think it would be a good potential policy to get things going. And this is another kind of good use case. As Governor Baker used to always tell me, the essential problem in government is overcoming inertia. And this seems to be another one. We're in a year in this negotiation. We keep adding the line over. So I'm going to start trying to experiment with how can we get it to the finish line. We've got, and some things have changed too. We have a new Parks and Rec director. I think I looked into this one on the YMCA lease. It's like, oh, this will be pretty easy. Let's just move forward. But this is a big one for recreation and kind of how things are going. And into the original lease, how do we kind of make it work for the next 10 years here? And I think originally, I think we were hoping to kind of come to, and we could still be there for the year, where some of the larger capital expenses that could be coming up in the building, and it's the fencing, the retaining wall things, how they handle light bulbs. There's all these kind of they've got an increase in about 50% in their electricity costs since 2020, but can't really raise the rents on Friends in Action or the music group because that would make that space unaffordable for them. So as inflation keeps going, what was I think a seemingly pretty good deal for the YMCA to operate the facility as a recreational facility and to the public, so that the city didn't have to, has now become less cost stable for the YMCA there. So as those costs increase, they bear more and more of those, to the point where it's become a pretty big burden, especially as childcare obviously has become more and more expensive with staffing, and so that's not able to cover those costs as well. So the YMCA has some good breakdowns on what those costs are, and kind of, so we can figure out an action plan forward. I think there's, in general, kind of two things we're thinking of now, which is one is, general modifications to the lease, so it can be a little more cost stable and manageable for the YMCA, and they could potentially keep operating the building as such. But then also, I think the potential, and the Y is interested in this as well, for us to maybe have the city, now that we have a Parks and Rec director, we'd probably need one additional staffer to do so, to operate it ourselves and have and charge the YMCA a lease for the square footage that they use, in the same way that we charge Friends in Action and what's the music group's name? I always
Ellsworth Community Music Institute.
Ellsworth Community Music Institute.
You're right on those things.
I was on their board for a while.
Oh, this is like, I don't know, it's Ellsworth Music something.
So we have pivoted to a Parks and Rec director, a janitor, which gets some great applications for that. And with those resources and assets, what would that look like? And I think one of the things is some is a communication piece, and the Y gets this amazing deal, and they only pay $1, and they charge everybody else for renting spaces, and I don't feel like that's quite fair in how it was originally conceived. The Y provides also a big service and takes a lot of cost for these pieces, but also, to get the council a little more in line on how the lease was originally set up and those costs, they have a pretty good breakdown of what they're incurring.
Charlie, have they figured out how much they're paying, how much with the cost and everything, how much it's actually costing them per square foot of what they use in that building?
Yeah, we could get that breakdown for you. I
really think you should, because I understand that their costs for the school nurse, the daycare is going up, but, and so that's making them not be able to take on more of those costs. But the idea wasn't necessarily for them to make the expenses break even for them. And they use a lot of that building. And so it just would be interesting to see, between the kitchen that was set up for them and their own dining room and that whole wing, and then their use of the gymnasium, their use of the back area for after school. I'd like to know how much that is per square foot.
Yeah, let me.
It may be more of a deal than you think it is.
I'm meeting with Matt later on today, so I'll ping him on that. I have a bunch of cost breakdowns, but I didn't quite feel comfortable bringing those in without him here. But I'm sure we can get that pretty easily. And we've also
That's
met
interesting.
with Friends in Action and whatever that acronym was for the music group. Because there's also a discussion, and we want to bring them into on how they use the space, how we can kind of update usage of the space, who's booking what, smaller things like the pianos that the Music Institute has there, and they're open to the public, and they're kind of wear and tear on those, and how do we charge for those, and some other pieces. But I'll definitely look into that piece on the square footage. I think that's the big question, and one of the probably first things is to, okay, what does the YMCA have? What's the current square footage arrangement for the Y and for these other folks? And if we went to a flip system, I also think with our own rec department too, we would wind down on the rec funding that we give in each budget cycle. So that would also be part of it, to kind of right-size the relationship. And I also think make it more fair and equitable to just everybody about how the city operates it. And here's the cost for operating that building, and here's the cost we charge to the Y and to the others, or not. Maybe that's like actually it is great to have the Y, and that it doesn't require us to have to expend staff there. So we'll definitely get to that too. And one of the other things, I think we always get so involved in the numbers and cents. That makes a lot of sense. We're in finance committee meetings. We're trying to save money. That's a big focus. But meeting with the other groups, the senior center, the YMCA, the music group, it's also just been great to hear about all the amazing things that go on there every single day, and the great relationship between those organizations. And it just seems like it's such a great community space. And I
It
think
is a great community space, and so that's why I worry. I just worry about a little bit about, I don't want to say being taken advantage of, but the expectation of the use of that building by the Y. We're not there to reduce the cost of the Y through the daycare. It's just really, and I think that's been in the past the way that, because the daycare was their moneymaker.
And I think
and
it.
was help to offset the cost of other projects and the other building and things like that, and I just would like it to be fair all around, that's all. So it's what I got thinking about after you and I talked. Okay, so with as much as they use of that building, what is their cost per square foot?
Yeah, and I think that's one of the difficulties about this, and even this lease for me in general, is the fairness issue. And in some ways, how it's set up, and fairness is the most difficult thing to realize. With everybody has their own idea of what's fair and what's not fair.
Yeah, no,
But when you
absolutely.
start tripping a fairness wire, like we've talked about with the YMCA gets $1 lease, and that's one of the big things, is how do we make the community and the council and everybody know, like, this is a really fair, great deal. When it was passed and it was put forward, like, those were there. Now a ton of inflation has happened, and especially over the last 5 years, and energy costs and those pieces, plus the childcare change. So I think what was a good deal for the Y to operate has become less so, but we need to kind of get the math on the table, get back towards that.
You
So
could break it down for each of them like a triple net lease, right? They have their own costs, and see what that looks like that way. So,
And there's a sub piece of this too. I know. It wasn't terribly long ago that was a big upgrade to that building, but it's been like a lot of things. There's been depreciation. It's an older building. 10 years is a long time. We've had some roof repairs, some other pieces. Sarah has been working on our capital improvement plan. They've narrowed it down to 2 kind of final consultants for that. One of them actually has more of an expertise in analyzing engineering building envelopes. This building, and that's for a separate finance committee meeting, we're going to need to start talking about the cupola. We've recently had a report from MMA on, kind of what the status update is there. So that one's something that may need to be looked forward to bring into the tier 1 along with the track and Taker 4 for us to take a look at in terms of how it's putting water in the building envelope. But is addition to part of this lease of what are the capital needs over there too. Steve, what do you got?
I'm dying to talk, right?
Well, that's why we kind of waited to the end too, because I feel like there is, yeah.
I just want to point out, or I have a couple of questions. First of all, I'll start with a statement. And I'd like to remind everybody that the city of Ellsworth's debt service is $27,000 a month on that building. So don't think for 1 second that the Y is the only one suffering. Now, this year, the data that Nate gave me, it peaked below $27,000 a month for the first time. It's just under 27, but it's ranged from 29 to roughly $27,000 a month that the city is paying, that the Y is using. That's just something that I want to remind everybody about, that nobody should take that for granted, because everybody in the city of Ellsworth is pitching in already. The questions that I have is, the lease ended in August of 14, and at a
24.
24.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm reading the original.
You're living in the past.
10-year lease started in 14, ended in August of 24, and you had mentioned that you had given them an extension, and I don't have that paperwork. Was there a formal
Yeah,
paperwork?
a formal signed extension. I'll probably bring it to the July
And that didn't
meeting.
come before the council.
I thought it did, but I
Did not.
could have.
Unless I'm completely unable to, I don't think it ever come before the council. And I'd like to see, because you've given us the proposed lease and you've given us the original lease, I'd like to see the
extension
extended
signed,
lease.
sure.
I think that that's important.
It's just the extension of the status quo,
Yeah.
correct?
Right, but if we're gonna look at this, I wanna look at all the documents, not just some of them.
Yep.
And the third thing is more of a statement than anything, I guess, but I think you're giving the Y too much control over our building. And I believe that the city of Ellsworth, in some regards, the Y took it for $1, and then they're in control of the other 2 entities using that. And I don't like that model. There's no reason, with all the staff here, that the city of Ellsworth couldn't take over that and deal separately with each entity that's in there to make sure it's all fair and equitable. Because everyone talks about the Y, but you have Friends in Action that's an incredibly important part of that building. And the Music Institute. That gives people an outing as well. So I think if the city's paying the bills, the city ought to set that up for each entity that's using it. I'm all for the place. I think that it provides a community space for the city of Ellsworth. I don't like the fact that the Y has control of our building, and then they're controlling the other entities. Maybe that made sense 10 years ago or 11 years ago, but I don't think it makes sense today. And I would like to see the city do whatever lease they want to do with the Y, with the Music Institute, with Friends in Action. Maybe there's another one, maybe there's not. I can't believe that it would be that much work to stop letting the Y control the other entities of our own building that we're paying 27 grand a month for.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons that I want to bring all these groups together. Like, we've met with the other groups. They seem to have a pretty great relationship with how it's working now. We're also, the school is coming in as well to add additional pre-K programming out of the Y. And I think, to your point, Michelle, in terms of square footage and building use, getting almost like a whole map of the building and exactly where it's at. They had some edits on what they want to do. So that's why I want to kind of do this right, get the council, and not have this be, behind closed doors, but let's start working on it together, similar to what we did with the cannabis piece. I feel like that's, this is a great council, has great input. I oftentimes find when I bring the final thing to the council meeting, it's like yes, no, and I've got 40 questions and I've got to do a yes, no, or then we table it. So how do we kind of get it to, this council really has been able to red flag all of these great things with the principals that are involved in it sometimes, because sometimes it's just me and I can handle it with staff, and sometimes there's a lot of community and external partners we need to go forward with. But
All three of those entities will be here next Friday.
yep, next Friday.
Next Friday.
We're hoping to. I can't, and some of the WISE board we're trying to get as well. So Matt and I will have an update later today, and I'll get you an update on the lease. I know I signed an extension. I think we're going to do another one last time around. I think this will be our second extension, but happy to
Do we
show you
have
that.
as-bills of that project?
Do we have what?
As-bills?
What's ASBITs?
The final plans of what, when
Oh.
we did the renovation. Woodard and Curran should have that.
Okay.
They oversaw that renovation. I think it would be great, actually, to be able to look at it that way. We know exactly what's in there and the square footage
Yeah.
of each place. And,
It was 3.9 million, what I saw.
well,
Yeah, the
I'm
renovation.
talking about the square footage.
No, I understand, but it was $3.9 million, so there ought to be a set of plans someplace.
I'm sure there's.
I'm sure there is. It's just, it's been 10 years and I don't know where everything is anymore, but
Yep.
Woodard and Curran oversaw that whole project.
So plans, cost per square foot analysis, we'll try to do that. The extension, we're going to have another year lease extension, so I might sign that and then bring it to ratification for the council in
Do you
the
want to do
July
another
meeting.
year or just 6 months?
Actually, yeah, and maybe 6
Let's do
months.
6
Yeah,
months.
sorry. Absolutely. I was actually thinking we could be, well, we'll see.
I mean, I'm not gonna be here, but.
Yeah, we can always,
What requires
Still running.
anything?
No,
I mean, the last one didn't come to the council, and I was disappointed in that, but what requires, is legal saying that we need to have some sort of formal written lease?
I can look into that too.
I think you can just do it, a simple lease, if you're gonna do it as is. you
Yeah,
can
as an
just do it-
extension.
You can just do a written extension that everybody agrees to, that status quo for the next 6 months.
Yeah, I
It's
think I've
pretty
done
easy.
2 already. I think I did one in August of last year for 6 months, and then we did another one
Yeah.
in December. I can't
That's all
remember.
it is, it's just a status quo.
Right, we're at where we're at. So, great. We'll talk more in the why.
Yeah, if I could just on the why, I won't be here next Friday, so, I think.
You want me to talk for you?
Yes, please.
Yeah,
Steve
okay.
is my proxy. But I'm encouraged by this conversation because obviously, the finance side is important and making sure it makes sense financially for the city. But I'm also hearing everyone say like, this is important space, these are important organizations, and they contribute to our community. Now, especially that the pre-K through the school is going to be in the building, I think it's a really good opportunity to, find a way to make this work for everyone. And at the same time, I think celebrate the Moore Center and that all the things that go on there. It's really important to the community, and of course, we want to make it as financially responsible to the city, But these organizations provide significant benefits to our community, and it's really, I think, an opportunity also to celebrate that and learn more about what they're doing, and hopefully through this process, the public, not just, I think, the transparency on the lease and the deal, so the public gets that, but also it's a good opportunity to remind everyone why the city did this 10 years ago and why we've been continuing to work with them. So I think they're all great. I know the people that lead those organizations, and they really just care, and they're trying to do the best. So I know with all the people in this room, we'll be able to find a way to make it work. So it's.
I'm all for the place. I
Oh,
just
yeah,
like it
yeah.
restructured.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
If
To
I
me-
could say one thing to your point, is the fact that the school department is moving into that spot, that's even more of a reason for the city to manage that building. Because you don't want the Y managing what we need to use our own building for.
Right, and the Y is going to incur more costs because of that. And then
They don't have to.
And then there's going to be another piece where, oh my, why is the Y charging the school to use this building, which is the city's owned? But there's a piece of that which that's why this whole arrangement kind of pings fairness issues, and I think puts a pall on the original inception and all the great things that are going on there. Which is, I know talking to you, Michelle, originally was like, all right, explain to me this, and the idea, and I hate to speak for you, but to have our seniors, our young folks, and music. And Ellsworth doesn't have a recreation building of any sort before this came about. And I know in my discussions with the other folks, it's kind of negative into the finances and how these kind of back and forth, but then talking to the other community folks, like that dream in many ways has been realized. So how can we get over this fairness piece and have a little bit of sunshine in how this building for the next generation, so that it's transparent and there's not this sort of the Y's getting this great deal, and why are they trying? I feel like that's it's not exactly what's happening, and so and the how do we move forward on it is I think this process should help in that. So
Much like the finance department was after continuous improvement. It's been 11 years, and it was a great concept, and it works. I mean, I'm not bucking it, but I'm just trying to make everybody realize that, hey, there's a lot of room for improvement here. And through this process, I believe that the community will recognize the use of that building more than it has.
No.
I think that it will, until I got on the council, I drove by it and didn't pay any attention, but I've been there, I've seen, it's really quite the place. And I think we need to find a way to make that a place for everybody.
yeah,
And contribute what we have to contribute. But we need to manage that space ourselves, not let someone else manage the space while we're paying the bills.
yeah. And to me, I want to get those. I know, Steve, we disagree sometimes on. Well, there's lots of people around here. They should just manage that, do this, and without staffing it. That's something we'll have to consider on how that pulls off, because I think that's one of the missing pieces here. And a Parks and Rec director is going to go on that, but to have them manage that space, figure out all the other assets that we need to do, and manage recreational facilities, hold our events. For one person, we oftentimes, we have a facilities person, but they've got a lot of buildings to clean. But there's a big piece too. It's not just the YMCA, it's Knowlton Park, it's the marina, how we rent our facilities, how we have it centralized so people can just kind of come to one place, know where it is, have those, and not have to be like, how do I use this building? What kind of city spaces could I operate or rent around here that's like, it's not clear. We want, from a citizen's community perspective, we want that to, you come to the city. Most cities of our size have a Parks and Rec director and a Parks and Rec department, sometimes much, much bigger even for smaller cities and towns. So,
If you could look at that, in the first 10 years was a crawl. It's been extended a few times. Then let's go to a walk by someone at City Hall in the beginning, starting to look at this while you onboard your rec department. And
Yep.
then the run would be when you decide how to move that forward, whether you enhance the rec department, whether someone at City Hall. I think you have to look at it in 3 spots. I think the crawl is last too long. We need to walk now. and then we need to run. When I'm talking about that, I'm talking about making this all it can be for the money that is there.
Yep. And to your point, Steve, on overcoming inertia and getting it here, I've had a lot of busy things, courthouse
get it.
relocations and other pieces. But I don't know, maybe setting a deadline here. I know we could do a lease extension, but those always can be a piece, like a public pronouncement with our Parks and Rec director on board that, is it November meeting that we want to have a finalized new lease with the Y, or October if that's reasonable. Let me just do a little bit more. And how do we create, in the courthouse process, there's been a fair amount of these where we had to this is the deadline, and then it pushes, by this time for the bond council to release funds, it was like, we have to do this, we have to get in there. So let me think more about that, Steve.
Michelle mentioned 6 months. I wonder if we shouldn't do it until the 31st of December. We could always give them another 6-month extension, right? I mean,
Right.
but if we give too big of an extension, we're not gonna deal with it until the last 30 days. That's just how human nature
It is
works.
human nature, yeah.
It's like figuring E.L. Shea figuring a job. They're gonna figure it from the time they get the plans until the bid day.
Yeah,
You
that's-
never stop, right? But the bid day is the important. So I believe that, the December 31st idea, that wasn't your idea. You said 6 months, but in the middle of August, I would think the 31st, and maybe we need
Oh, I
another
meant
6
6 months from now, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was looking at
I was
August.
thinking, my thing was exactly you, by the end of this year.
Right, okay.
So,
No, I think
I don't know
that,
what that means, but yeah,
Yeah,
no, I
yeah.
agree, yeah.
Yeah, and I
Bring it into another year.
yeah.
totally, Steve. It's, you don't, if
And
you
we
put
may
it.
have to, and that's okay.
And also, in our redesign of council, how we work the workshop idea, we'll talk more at the council meeting. This could be a regular item on this. I have a weekly meeting with the YMCA. It's probably been about 3 or 4 months, but that's not, sometimes that can solve it for me. I have a big issue. I'm like, great, we're going to do a weekly on this. We're going to get it to the end of the line. But that hasn't been working. So this council piece on maybe more, we'll try it the first time on Friday with the players involved, but maybe we bring those folks back, once a month, kind of get updates so we can, by December 31st, or if we're in better shape with the Parks and Rec director beforehand, we can move that way too.
Whatever the outcome, everybody needs to win.
Yeah, it can be a win-win. Yeah, this is.
Right.
Yeah.
Everybody needs to
Absolutely
win,
can. I think
whatever the outcome.
Yeah.
I think that the idea of the building and the use of the building is good. It's just,
Yeah.
it's just the semantics of the oversight of the building that needs to be.
Yeah, and the transparency and the, this is what this is. And then we can get back towards all the awesome stuff that's going on there.
Well, I'm just encouraged. I think we're all on the same page.
Yeah.
And as far as how we get there, I'm open to any number of,
too.
arrangements and ultimately what we think makes the most sense.
And I think ultimately this is going to be a big value add for our,
You too.
it's one of the things for our Parks and Rec department. This is perfectly aligned
Do you
with
have a
it.
job description for your Parks and Rec director?
I do, it's online at
Oh, it is?
ellsworthmaine.gov.
You think gonna
Responsive.
apply?
No, I'm just, because every time we talk about something, it's the Parks and Rec director that's gonna take care of it. Scares the dickens out of me. I'm like,
Yeah, it's
gonna be quite a job.
It is, and I think even with our
Okay.
economic development director, and you look at that one, our deputy city manager job description, I used to call biggest little city in Maine as like a positive, but we just talked to the branding consultants that were hired for the Maine Office of Tourism thing. And now I kind of use it mostly in a negative, like this is the biggest little city in Maine problem. We have all these big city pressure, but we're a little town kind of resources, staff vibe. So like, how can we either say no or resource things in different ways? I think I talked about in the budget, the public safety departments, increased by about $3 million per year in terms of we're spending $3 million more per year now than we were 5-6 years ago. They've had pretty substantial staffing increases in those areas. But you look at the comp plan, you look at the other pieces, you look at all the city council meetings, the requests for the new, the requests for the do this are really more on a different side of the staff. So do we say no to more things? Do we operate staff better? Do we use technology? Do we, and I think, do we change our processes as a council for how we can get these things moving faster? We got a $600 million increase in valuation of the city. Like this place is growing. Got a $20 million home to suites. We got a 150 unit. We got a 36 unit coming in. We got a village partnership initiative that could be a $30 million state federal investment with a $3 million city match and transform our downtown. We got a thriving communities initiative. It's a big federal initiative up on High Street. We got a courthouse relocation project. We just did $1.6 million in roads. The staff, we had a management meeting on the potential 4-day work week, which we've talked about, Steve, on kind of how that would operationally move forward, which we'll need to talk about more. But all the managers are like the idea of this, 7 to 5:30, Monday through Thursday, or even what we're now, like we're all putting in way more hours than that. So how do we meet this moment and do so in a way that can sustain?
Two things I just wanted to throw out is, we need I don't know if the public is gonna speak before our deadline here, so I didn't wanna cut anybody out of the public, but, there's a lot of cities in Ellsworth, in Maine, that would like to have Ellsworth problems.
Yep. Totally. In rural America, to have this kind of growth profile
They would like to have our problems.
and to have the optimism too, I think that's the other piece. Like, I know with High Street and some of the repairs, it's been a tough with the potholes and pieces, but also you go to the chamber event, you see a lot of the groundbreaking this week at Home to Suites. Talk with that business owner about his process coming through our planning board, getting that. I mean, he was here last winter. Shovels are in the ground now. Dice Arts coming in. A Kubota, potentially a dealership coming in. Like these are big things.
Is it
And
Kubota or Coyote?
I think it's Kubota.
Is it Kubota?
Yeah.
Oh, I'll wait till I tell my brother. He-
Orange and
he goes,
green.
I heard it was Kubota, and someone told me it was Coyote. I'm like, he was all bummed. I'm like, I'll tell him.
Awesome.
This is cool though. No, it is. It's our great problems to
It
have.
really is.
It really
It's-
is.
It's the best.
Yeah, and even just like that Home to Suites too. Like I think public-private partnerships and when things are working well, like that was Michelle and Mickey was the chamber event. Mickey was talking about how she worked with the father of the previous owner of Home to Suites, the Witham Group, to find that location 15 years ago, or 10, so that he really wanted that piece, and it was complicated, and the city had to help out to figure out where it was and get it there, and then, now they're putting a $20 million plus project in there, which is going to help our economy pretty well, and he said Ellsworth's time is now. Like that's why they're building in Ellsworth. So really excited about
That was
that.
a heck of a project. We had to move the light, change that into a four-way intersection, change all the entrances into the mall, just to get the Walgreens and the hotel. It was quite a project.
Excellent.
Cara, just here to hang out?
to observe and hang out.
There you go.
Awesome.
Great.
Really awesome.
Well, I'll miss you guys, but I'll be back in 2 weeks.
I'm sure you'll be thinking of us going, oh, I wish there was
hate
some way that
missing
I
these
could do
meetings. These
this.
are important things.
Where are you going?
We're going to Belgium. Courtney my wife has a conference there, and then so we're bringing Jack, and then we're going camping in France. We're going to Normandy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we're gonna go to the D-Day beaches.
And how old is Jack?
6.
Oh, what a great
Yeah, he's pretty
experience.
fired up. He's
Yeah.
most excited about the camp.